All right, so we've spent tonight already a significant amount of time talking about strategies in implementation. And so you're seeing the strategies in implementation. But I don't want to, again, one thing I want to add about that is, again, keeping in mind, strategy and implementation does not mean concrete implementation where we cannot move and we cannot make changes, right? What you're seeing are strategies and implementation that are in stages of evolution and improving and getting feedback and getting better. And that's an essential part of our strategic plan. So now what we would like to do is we would like to move and talk about our key strategies in design. So we're going to have, I believe we have 4 folks that are going to come up here for a second. They're going to need a microphone. So I'm going to tell you which strategy in design that each person is representing. So Ryan Poole is back with us tonight, and he is going to talk about the middle school schedule. He'll be talking about that key strategy in design. Devana will be talking about the key strategy customer service, and I know that is an umbrella term, but we'll kind of scroll down a little bit on that as well. Howard is going to talk to us about power skills. And Van is going to discuss, he's going to bat double duty today. He's going to do elementary and secondary in regards to student advocacy. And what we're going to do, I've got a couple of questions that they've prepped for, and we're just going to walk through those questions. And Van, we're going to start with you first. And so the question that I would like for each member to talk about is, how does this strategy in design advance the strategic plan? So Van, will you talk a little bit about how student advocacy advances the strategic plan?
So our strategy is that we will inspire the conditions that lead to success in each school by utilizing a system of advocacy for each child that facilitates healthy social and emotional growth. So the premise there is that students come to us with social and emotional issues that have to be dealt with. And as a matter of fact, we're seeing more and more of that. And so in order for us to certainly achieve the academic side of the strategic plan, we need to tend to the social and emotional needs of students. And historically in our district, we've done a really good job of educating the entire child. And so this is something that we have some specific strategies around now.
Okay. Devana, will you talk about customer service and how that advances our strategic plan?
I would love to. So that, of course, goes with System Commitment 3, which talks about our schools being service-oriented systems, centers of learning. Did I cut out? Committed to family and community partnerships. And of course, we don't mean that just to be schools. We mean that all aspects of the district, which would include us here at Central Services as well. And as Dr. Little alluded to, customer service can be a very broad topic, and that, of course, is why we are still under developing this topic and thinking through what that kind of can look like. But when we started trying to think through that last year, we kind of took it in 2 parts. And one was really looking at Central Services, who are our customers? What does that mean? What does that look like? If we dig down into that, what do they really need? So those of us here at Central Services all worked with our departments, and we did some protocols. We did a wagon wheel protocol. We identified who our customers were and what are some ways that we can really think about how we can serve them better. And then the second prong of that was really strengthening our family and community partnerships. And we, of course, we do that in a number of ways in our schools, but we want to continue to grow in that. A lot of you have, as board members, of course, have participated in a number of those, looking at student-led conferences, looking at community showcases in Gilbert and Pillion, and community service events. So we want to continue to really expand that definition of customer service, think about what that really means and looks like both at the school level and here at Central Services.
Okay, can you talk a little bit about the middle school schedule? How does that support the strategic plan?
So when we started talking about what we wanted from the strategic plan, this idea that all students advance on time with the skills that they need to be successful, and all the while learning specific power skills, having the opportunities to have different kind of experiences with partnerships in the community, and teachers to have the planning time and the time they need to individualize for students. We tried to look at scheduling instead of as this sort of you build the schedule and then fit in what you want. We tried to reverse that, especially with the opening of a new middle school. It gave us the chance to get people together and say, so what is it that we want middle school time and space and place to result in? And then let's build the schedule that's going to get us that. So we looked at a lot of different models from around the Southeast and the nation, research from Hanover, talking to our teachers, our students, our administrators, and really brought the principals together and said, we don't want to lose anything that we've had, but there are certain things we want to gain, and that's dedicated advocacy time to address the social and emotional learning of students. That's got to be a part of our middle school experience. We've got to have flexibility, so it's not one size fits all. You don't have to give up performing arts in order to get RTI services. It shouldn't be one or the other. So how do you build a schedule that gets to all of that to meet those commitments for all children? So we landed on a schedule that we're trying at 5 of our 8 middle schools now that allows more flexible options and a really different use of time and space and place for kids. But it's allowing us to still grow language learners while providing individualized service, while teachers can plan more individually. So it was really reversing that idea of build the schedule and then fit in your goals. What are your goals, and then build the schedule that meets it was the idea.
Howard, talk to us about power skills.
So power skills directly address system commitment number 2, which is to ensure that teaching and learning develop power skills in all students. And just a quick reminder, those power skills that we've identified in our strategic plan are communication, collaboration, critical thinking, interpersonal skills, perseverance, accountability, and the willingness to take risks. And so this strategy also directly addresses our district mission to cultivate a caring community where all learners are extraordinary communicators, collaborators, creators, and critical thinkers. And we know we're doing some amazing things in these areas right now. But I think our goal, and I think we'll probably have the opportunity to get to that, is to make sure that we have a system in place that allow us to do all of those things for all students, and figure out how we get the right conditions in place to make sure that's a reality across all of our schools.
Well, Howard, let's stay there. Let's stay with you then,
Okay.
and talk
Sure.
about those goals. Can you give us some more specifics on what are the implementation goals of Power Skills this year?
Sure, absolutely. So one goal for us is to form a project team to study a more systematic way to assess and promote all the power skills to all students across our system. Like I said, we're doing some really great things in a lot of those areas, but I don't know that we can say that we have something in place that allows us to help all of our students address each and every one of those skills that are so critical to their success now and in their future. And so the question that's going to drive our research is, how do our schools purposefully create the conditions by which all students grow in the skills needed to thrive in life and work? So really the key piece there is, what are the conditions that must be present in order for all of these power skills to come together? And we're not going to be able to address them in isolation. We need to have a system in place that gives students the opportunities to really grow in all of those areas simultaneously. And then the goal we'll work toward this year is to provide a strategic recommendation by the end of the year that includes a current state analysis, a theory of action, a logic model, an action plan, and then a structure for an after-action study.
Okay, good stuff. Ryan just a minute ago talked about the schedule and being part of the student advocacy schedule as well. What are some other the implementation goals for student advocacy?
So just wanted to, well, overall, the goal is to make sure that every child, and we say all means all, that every child has an adult in their building that is well-versed on their needs, their social, emotional, academic needs, and that they can advocate for that child. And so in terms of the scheduling, I know that at the high school level, there are frameworks in place that address this. We have Crew at River Bluff and Gilbert. We have Impact at White Knoll High School, Pride at Pillion, and Advisory at Lexington High School. And these are times where adults can work with students in a smaller group setting and can discuss things that may not necessarily be about academics. It may be those social and emotional things that hamper their education. So it's also very much designed to create a positive school culture, a culture of belonging, a culture of cooperation and collaboration. So those kinds of things are going on at the high school and at the middle school. One other thing that we know is happening is that students that have been assigned to AES get regular visits from their home schools to check in to see how they're progressing and to address any needs that they have. Now, at the elementary level, of course, we have 17 schools, so we have a variety of approaches, and of course, those students are in a self-contained setting, so they have a teacher that certainly can advocate for them. But we look for ways to make those groups smaller so that kids have more individualized attention. So we do things like morning meetings where we get the day started off, kind of set the day. Because kids come to us from all sorts of things that they're bringing to us from home. And we also have quite a few very good mentoring programs and extensive partnerships throughout the community where we have volunteers that come in from churches and businesses that work in small groups to address this, and they can serve as an advocate for a child as well. But the idea is that every child has that advocate, and I think at this point, you know, we have worked first with our most needy students, but the goal is certainly to expand that to get to make sure all students have that advocate.
Okay. Devonna, talk to us about customer service. What do we want to accomplish this year? How can we move customer service forward?
Well, if you just put it quite simply, we want to have next level customer service. And while that sounds quite simple, it's really quite complex because we want to truly dig down and make sure that we are finding out what our customers' true needs are and making sure that we are just digging until we are meeting all of those needs, whatever they might be. So gathering that feedback sometimes is a little more complex than it seems. And so we want to make sure that we're doing that. You know, when we did our research here at the district office and we did our protocols, of course, you know, we were able to name customers that you would expect us to name, students and parents and schools. And but when we really reflected on you know, what does that really look like, you know, when we serve each other? We had some work to do with that. So we did seek some feedback. Our principals gave us some really great feedback. So we named some specific strategies based on their feedback that we wanted to work on this year. They gave us some specific feedback around team learning that they wanted us to adjust. Each of our SLT members are going to have a principal advisory group. So each chief is going to have a group of principals to give them feedback on specific actions or specific, just really anything that they would like to, that chief to hear about, whether it's feedback that's coming from their parents or from their students or things that are happening in their school. So that's really great. Just communication, we've talked a lot about that tonight. So we're going to have a resource hub and a centralized directory now for schools to be able to use. We've talked a lot about central service presence in schools, and Dr. Little has, asked us to increase that. So we're going to be working through some volunteer programs and some opportunities for not just instruction, but for other departments to be active in the schools. Principals and teachers and others want to see us out there, and they want us to see us involved, and they want us to know what's happening and what it looks like in the classrooms. And then you heard Dr. Phillips talk about those strategic support teams and how different members of our central services teams are serving on those. So that was based on some of the feedback that we heard as we dug into the customer service piece. So it's nice to see that even though we're digging into customer service, that's connecting with different departments, and instruction, and all the different pieces are starting to connect together, which just shows us that's the way it's supposed to be. And we have a lot more work to do, a lot more feedback to gather, but we do really want to dig into that and continue to explore more options on how we really can connect and take that to the next level.
Okay, so Mr. Poole, your strategy here is a little more defined, right? And you're actually already in some level of implementation now. What does implementation, what do implementation goals look like for your strategy, which is a little different than the other three?
Okay, and there's a basic level of assessment of the student growth and student achievement that we hope to see change as a result of the scheduling changes we've put into place. So there are a lot of measures of what makes a school successful or a student successful. So test scores aren't all it, and attendance isn't all it, or behavior, but it's a whole picture. But there are some basic assessments that we want to see change. We saw, when you look at state report cards, our district is a premier district across the state and the Southeast and probably the nation. Our middle schools in Lexington 1 were not progressing students either in achievement or growth at the same rate as our elementary schools and our high schools. And we wanted to know why that was and what we could do differently so that those very crucial years of like 11 to 14, when there's so much more turmoil, the kids are getting what they need. So we want to see no middle schools at an unsatisfactory rating on a state report card ever. We want to move all middle schools to surpassing average on their state report cards, and those take into a number of factors. We wanted to increase the amount of time that students got in language arts, math, science, and social studies, and advocacy. We wanted to see, in terms of growth, the state provides what's called a growth index for students. So we want to see a positive growth index for students. That means, in terms of their movement from grade 7 to grade 6, they're progressing upward in the standards at grade level and not regressing at all. So we want to see that at all of our middle schools. And particularly a positive growth index for the bottom 20% category as identified by the state. So students who have struggled to be at grade level, we've got to see a higher rate of growth from those students to raise their achievement and close the gaps. And we hope to see that through these changes in the amount of time, while not losing some of the things that have made our middle schools really special in terms of their exploration of STEM and STEAM and world languages and the arts.
Okay, so we'll start with Devonna if you want to kick off this one, because I really see customer service as, we talked about it being sort of this nebulous idea. What are the challenges associated as we move forward in customer service?
Well, I think always, with customer service, you want to do more and more and more. We brought up the idea, for example, of volunteering in schools, and everybody was thrilled with it, and they want to give lots of time and do lots of things, and probably want to give up their day job to go read to kids all day, right? So, we want to do more and more and more, and that's a great thing, and we should. But, trying to balance that, trying to make sure we are gathering all the feedback, trying to remember who our true customers are, trying to get to that hard yes, trying to keep that all in balance and check. It is sometimes a difficult balance to get to all that. But, you know, we have to do that. It's our job to think outside the box and to get to that yes and to find the way to make sure that we are doing what's right for students in our building. And so, you know, sometimes time does become a challenge, and those opportunities are there because you do still have to balance the work of it all, and just making time to do that. But we're committed to do that this year and to get to that next level and to find the time and make the opportunities available to that. So.
Okay, and Howard, to go to you, so this idea of wanting to do more and more and more and more, and you're talking about power skills, and you know our days are rather busy. You know, somebody mentioned that over here. You know, our days are rather busy as it is. We've got these really great posters in some schools, and how do we, you know, what's the challenges associated with moving from the poster to implementation?
Sure. So it really is a good question, because a challenge that we have is to determine how to best assess the development of all power skills in all students. And I'll share with you, I was in a school strategic team meeting today, and you know, we were doing a data dig on their test scores, and you know, they had great data there, but what was not represented was the work that they're doing for their students on a daily basis to teach them how to be relevant in the future that they're going to inherit, how to work with each other in collaborative groups, how to strengthen their communication skills so that they can effectively complete projects and solve tasks and problems. And though we don't have a metric in place for that, and so that's something that we're going to work on this year as we partner with Ed Leader 21 and some minds across the nation in a work group that's focused on that type of assessment. Some people that are trying to do the same things that we are. Alliance for Education. We're looking to figure out how are other people doing it, or what are the same questions that we share. How can we find answers to that, so that we can prepare our schools, give our schools something to track and figure out how to get better. You know, establishing a baseline of the current abilities of our students in each of those areas, benchmarking growth along the way, and then improving our process based on our analysis of those data points. If we don't know where we are and don't know where we're headed, then it's kind of tough for us to make that progress. So that's one thing that's going to be a challenge, and we're going to try to tackle this year. Another challenge is to determine how we create those conditions that offer a holistic approach to student power school development, instead of really just focusing on one of them at a time, because it can't be done in that way. We can do some great things around student collaboration. We can give them opportunities to be creative through projects and solve problems. But if we're really going to give a student an opportunity to develop in a way that's going to allow them to be successful, we've got to figure out a way to build a fertile foundation for them to grow in all of those areas at the same time. So it'll be a challenge, but one we're excited about digging into this year.
So it sounds like you're tackling some of these complexities associated with the power skills, and I think there's some real complexities also with student advocacy. What are those complexities and challenges associated with moving student advocacy forward?
Well, I think that certainly time and people would be the two obstacles that I would see. You know, if you're really going to form small groups where adults can take the time to really learn about a student and be able to positively advocate for that student, that certainly takes personnel. And so we've done a really good job of utilizing our personnel within the school, but we've also you know, sought out means outside of the school. And that's where the partnerships come in, and the mentor programs, which have been very successful throughout the district. So it takes people, it takes creative scheduling, because you have to have time during the day to address these things. So I know that at the middle and the high school level, the frameworks and the scheduling work that Ryan's done has really focused on the advocacy piece. And at the elementary level, our principals are really analyzing their schedules and I'll tell you, if you want to see a jam-packed schedule, you look at an elementary school schedule, it's jam-packed. But those guys have been really creative at finding time to pay attention to the social and emotional needs of students. And that's where you see things like the morning meetings come into play. Really, I think that the people and the time factor is something that we have to continuously battle.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Ryan, let's come back to the middle school schedule. So middle school is my background, and this is one of the innovations that I'm most excited about is how we're changing the time and how we use that time at the middle school level. But I know there's some challenges associated with the implementation that we've probably already seen in the first few weeks of school. What are some of the what do some of those challenges look like?
Well, if you've never built an elementary or a middle or a high school schedule, it is a true it's a truly gratifying creative process, but it's kind of like doing a Sudoku puzzle or something that never quite works out the way you want it to. There's a lot of goals that you're trying to meet, and you manipulate time and structures and people in certain ways, and then you find your roadblock. So I thought I had it, but now that person's not certified to teach there, so I got to look in a different way. Or I thought I had it, but my sixth graders haven't eaten, and that's not okay. So it really is a neat process to go through the scheduling, but it's challenging, and there's some compromise there. You want so many different things for all the kids, and you have to kind of pick your priorities and say, I've got to give a little here to get this. And then once you do that, just the logistical pieces of certifications and lunches and is 5 minutes enough to get from here to here and those pieces, then there's the piece of that human element of change. So we just invested years in doing things a certain way, and now we want to adjust, and we're going to continue to adjust and grow. And that's the piece, the message there is it's never going to stop. We'll always kind of keep evolving. But with change leadership, there's challenge, and people take a lot of pride in what they do, and and it's personal for them. So to ask for more different is just an ongoing hard thing to do. And then you've got a lot of other stakeholders who also want what they want. So there's a lot of conversations about, I know your kid probably is going to be a Hollywood movie star, but right now I need them to do some robots, because we want to develop the whole child. And that's what 11 to 14 needs to do. When you get into high school, we can start to kind of specialize, but I need you to explore right now. And those conversations are there too. So it's exciting challenges, but challenging nonetheless.
So the last question that the group's going to tackle, if the this is one of my go-to questions, right? So you've heard 4 different strategies. If these strategies are fully implemented, what will it look like? And this is often a question that we don't ask ourselves as we're in this planning stage. So we're going to start with Howard and kind of work our way back down this way. So Howard, if tomorrow power skills were fully implemented and we were at 100% capacity, what would it look like in our schools?
I think it'd look pretty amazing. Simply put, every school would have the appropriate structure in place for all students to grow in all power skills. Not some students in all power skills, not all power skills in some students. So I said every school has appropriate structures in place for all students to grow in all power skills. And so, the challenges are there where we do some things real well. We do things well that have been in place and that we've gone down those roads and have met some of those challenges. But some of these things we don't know how to do yet, or we don't know how to make those conditions available for all students within all of those schools. So it'll be about finding out how as a system can we have programs in place where students, by virtue of being in our system, can't opt out of growing in all of those different places. You know, they're going to learn how to persevere and not just how to collaborate. They're going to learn how to take risks and not just be real creative in the program that they're involved in. And so when we have that in place, I think we will have accomplished our goal.
Fantastic. Ryan?
If and when we achieve our goals, students won't have to make really unfortunate choices, because there's going to be flexibility for them to have what they need and what they want, and pursue their interests without having to give up more than they should have to give up. Along those lines, they can have a schedule that meets their needs, but also allows them to get services from a gifted and talented teacher, an ESOL teacher, a special education teacher, without having to pull them out of classes or change their schedule so that they can be served. 100% of our middle schoolers have an adult advocate that they spend quality time with, dedicated to both responding to their needs and proacting to what an early adolescent student is going to face in the next year or so. And literacy and numeracy are developed in personalized ways for the student who is far above grade level and the student who has struggled. So all those things can come to place through the schedule.
I'm going to follow up really quickly and put you on the spot. You talked about 5 out of 8. You talked about 5 out of 8. Are there plans to bring on 8 out of 8 when it comes to middle schools?
So we're looking through school support meetings at how it's working. We're looking at the successes that we're having and what we're having to give up all along the way. Early signs indicate we're going to be asking, what's it mean in terms of resource allocation to move in this direction for all schools, because the start, even with all that change stuff I was talking about, the start has been pretty positive.
Great. Devonna?
All right, so when we started with this idea of customer service, this really big, broad idea, we weren't sure exactly what direction it was headed, but what we were sure of is where we did not want it to go. And we did not want it to be just about how to answer the phone or how to smile at someone when they come in the door. Absolutely, those things are important, and we want people to have a warm and welcoming culture when they come into our schools or when they come into central services, but that's not simply what this is about. This is about big picture of culture and how we serve students and how we serve families and how we serve each other. And so we have a lot of work to do to dig into that. So we hope what this looks like when it's fully implemented is a whole lot of people working together collaboratively very hard to ensure that we are living up to our mission and vision, that each child is having the opportunity to design and empower their own future, and that we are really living up to that all means all, that we are providing the services, whatever that takes, that we are diving deep to meet those needs through service, whether that's through parent, through student, through teacher, through each other, that we are really trying to meet those needs. And that is customer service, serving each other through that. So.
Now, Van, you were just talking. No, it's me, I think.
Got a new
You
battery
good?
in it, so
That's okay.
it's hot mic.
Now, you were talking earlier. I think you captured some of what it will look like when it's fully implemented. But let's speak to a couple more minutes to that.
Well, you know, I think that in an optimal environment, we have children that feel psychologically safe within the school. They feel emotionally safe. They feel a sense of belonging, and they're functioning at an optimal level for academic achievement. So that would also mean that we have an adult in every school that is well-versed on the needs of every child, and that every kid has that advocate that can swiftly help them with their needs as they arise, and so that they can function at a high level academically.
Okay.
Yep.
Can we give these folks a round of applause? Thank you very much. So